Harrison Ford sat slouched but steady at the view's crowded table, the same old half-grin tugging at the corners of his mouth that had disarmed critics for 50 years. But today, the grin wasn't quite reaching his eyes. Across from him, Joy Behar flipped through her question cards, her red glasses sliding down her nose as she squinted over the top at him. The audience hush had a polite tension to it, the kind that pressed on the back of your neck like a storm you could feel before you heard the thunder. Whoopi Goldberg kept her tone light, trying to ease the edge. Harrison, you've always been outspoken, but your new comments on climate policy and corporate lobbying have people fired up. You really think the system's that rigged? Harrison's gravelly voice cut through the hush like a slow saw. I don't think it. I've watched it happen. The spin is what keeps people from seeing who's cashing the checks. Joy Behar cocked her head, her smile thin. So you're saying every politician, every lobbyist, every voter is just what? Bought and sold. Harrison leaned back, arms folded, the grin gone now. Not every voter, Joy. Just the ones with the biggest megaphones and the deepest pockets. A small cough cracked near the second row. The hush swallowed it whole. Sunny Hostin jumped in, her pen tapping her mug. But you're worth millions, Harrison. You're an A-list star who's worked with corporations your whole life. Where do you get off telling working people they're being duped? Harrison's eyes shifted to Sunny, his tone calm but sharp at the edges. Maybe because I've seen the back rooms. The private jets. The handshakes that make the headlines look like bedtime stories. Joy let out a dry laugh that cracked the hush a little wider. Oh, please. Spare us the tortured Hollywood guilt. You profit off this system as much as anyone. Harrison's jaw flexed. That hush pulled tight again. Yeah, I've made my money. And now I'm telling the truth. The part nobody puts in the script. Whoopi leaned forward, glasses low. But don't you think you're stirring up division when people need hope? Harrison's voice dropped lower, calm enough to make the hush shiver. Hope doesn't come from closing your eyes, Whoopi. It comes from opening them and saying, enough. The hush braced tight. Nobody clapped. Nobody dared. Joy Behar snapped her cue cards down on the glass table, so hard the sound made the front row flinch. Her voice stayed syrup-sweet, but the edge under it was sharper than the paper cuts in her hand. So let me get this straight. Harrison, you're going to sit here and lecture middle-class Americans about greed? You're worth how much now? Harrison's eyes didn't blink. You think because I'm rich I don't see what money does? Joy's laugh barked out, cold and bright. Oh, I think you see just fine, from your ranch, from your jet, from your million-dollar movie sets. It's cute you think that makes you better than the rest of us. A small rippled through the audience. The hush bent, but held. Sunny Hostin jumped in, voice tight, but smooth. Look, Harrison, nobody's saying big corporations don't influence politics. But people need hope, not your doomsday sermon. Harrison leaned in, elbows pressing on the table, that old pilot's squint tightening around his eyes. Hope is fine until it turns into sedation. You call it hope, they call it cover. Whoopi tried to soften it, her tone dropping a notch. You've been in this business a long time, Harrison. You know how soundbites work. If you sit here and say the system's rigged and hopeless, what do you expect people to do? Harrison's grin flickered, but there was no warmth behind it. Maybe they'll start asking who's rigging it. Joy's hand slapped the table again, the hush snapping like a sheet in the wind. You don't get to come here, sit in that chair, and insult people who are doing the best they can. Harrison's voice cut low, so low the hush pulled closer. I'm not insulting the people who work 2 jobs and still can't pay the rent. I'm insulting the ones who pay to keep it that way. Joy's eyes narrowed, her tone dipping to a hiss. And you think you're the hero for saying it? You think you're better than this table? Better than me? Harrison's jaw clenched. I think I'm tired of pretending the spin is the truth just because it sells tickets. A single clap cracked in the back. It died in the hush before it could breathe. Whoopi leaned forward, voice soft but coiled. Careful, Harrison. You're turning a conversation into a lecture. Harrison didn't blink. And maybe it's about time somebody did. The hush bent tighter because everyone knew Joy wasn't done yet. Joy Behar leaned back in her chair just far enough to let her smile settle into something sharper, her voice a soft venom meant to sting where the cameras could catch it. You know what your problem is, Harrison? You've been rich too long to remember what struggle looks like. You think standing up here dropping your truth bombs makes you a working-class hero. Harrison's laugh came out low, no smile, no warmth. If telling people to open their eyes makes me the villain, then so be it. Sunny Hostin crossed her arms. Her pen snapped in half in front of her. Nobody's saying you're a villain, but you're not the Messiah either. People don't need to hear that they're powerless. Harrison's eyes snapped to Sunny, his tone dropping soft enough that the hush bent forward. They're not powerless. They're distracted. And you're helping. Joy slammed her palm flat on the table, the smack echoing under the lights. Excuse me? Helping what? You're calling me a distraction now. Harrison's jaw flexed. If the shoe fits, Joy. A single gasp cracked near the front row. No one dared clap. Whoopi held up a hand, her voice cutting the hush in half. Harrison, you've done a lot of good. But don't come on this show and paint us as part of the problem when we're sitting here trying to have a real conversation. Harrison's voice went lower, the hush so tight it felt like it would snap. A real conversation means saying the part nobody wants to say. You can't fix what you won't admit is broken. Joy's eyes narrowed into slits behind her glasses. You think you're the only one who sees the cracks? I've been at this table 20 years, Harrison. I've seen more corruption up close than you ever will. Harrison leaned in, elbows on the glass, his voice calm but dangerous. Then why do you still sell the spin like it's gospel? The hush gasped, then fell dead silent again. Joy pointed a finger at him, jabbing the air. Don't you come on my show and tell me I'm lying to people. Don't you sit there in your leather jacket and your Hollywood halo and preach to us about what's real. Harrison's stare didn't flinch. Maybe it's time someone did. Whoopi's voice cracked just enough to show the hush under her skin. You keep going like this, Harrison, you're going to find that door a lot sooner than you think. Harrison didn't blink. Better to walk out telling the truth than stay seated for the spin. The hush bent so tight it felt ready to break. Joy Behar pushed her chair back just enough for the audience to feel the scrape echo in the hush. She jabbed her finger toward Harrison, her voice rising until the tension in the air felt like static ready to snap. You want to play the wise old rebel, Harrison? You think you're some truth-teller riding in on your horse to rescue the poor, clueless masses. Harrison tilted his head, that old grin flickering but never landing. No horse today, Joy. Just the truth. That's all I've got left. Sunny Hostin slammed her broken pen on the table, the snap sharp enough to crack the hush. This is ridiculous. You keep calling it truth like it's your private property. Who made you the moral compass of the country? Harrison leaned in, voice calm enough to sting. Nobody. But somebody's got to say it when everyone else is too comfortable to. Whoopi leaned forward, her glasses sliding halfway down her nose. And you think you're better than this show? Better than this table? Harrison's tone turned dry, but the fire stayed under every word. No, but I'm not afraid to call out the lie when I see it. Joy barked out a bitter laugh. Lie? We sit here every day talking about what's wrong with this country. Where are you, huh? Flying over in your jet while we're down here in the mess. Harrison's jaw clenched, eyes locked on her. I'm not here for your stage. I'm here to say what you want. Joy stepped closer, voice low but sharp enough to pierce the back row. You are the stage, Harrison. You love this. You love the righteous rebel act. You're not helping. You're feeding the outrage machine that lines your pockets. Harrison's voice dropped lower, hush bending to catch every syllable. You think people stay outraged for me? They stay outraged because they know you're selling them comfort instead of truth. The hush broke into tiny gasps, shoulders shifting in the front row. Whoopi's tone cracked, steel under the calm. If you can't respect this table, you can stand up and walk out that door. Harrison rose slow, hands braced on the glass edge. Maybe I will. Better than sitting here and pretending I don't know what I know. Joy hissed under her breath. Get up then. Harrison's eyes didn't blink. Gladly. And the hush bent so tight it felt like the whole studio might split at the seams. Harrison Ford stayed standing, one hand braced on the glass table like he needed to feel it under his palm, like he was steadying himself before the storm finally blew the roof off. Joy Behar's red glasses slipped down her nose as she glared up at him, her fingers still pointed like a dagger that wouldn't drop. Joy's voice was low and cold. You think people want your lecture? They tune in for real solutions, not your doomsday nonsense. Harrison's jaw flexed as he leaned forward, eyes locked on hers so tight the hush felt every syllable. Solutions start when you stop pretending the spin is the truth. That's the only fix that matters. Sunny Hostin's voice cracked as she threw her broken pen at her notes. That's rich coming from you. You'll fly back to your ranch and forget all about this while the rest of us stay here in the real mess. Harrison's voice landed flat, no grin left. I don't forget. I just won't lie about it. Whoopi's chair creaked as she leaned in, eyes hard as nails. If you're so tired of the spin, then why come on this show at all, Harrison? Why sit here if you think it's all lies? Harrison's laugh was dry, almost sad. Because sometimes you have to say it where they can't pretend they didn't hear it. Joy slapped the table, her voice nearly a shout now. Get out then. You're not better than this table. You're just louder. Harrison straightened, his old pilot's squint locking the hush in place. No, Joy. I'm just done pretending silence is polite. A sharp gasp snapped near the front row. It stayed hanging like a held breath. Whoopi's voice dropped to ice. Security. But Harrison didn't wait. He pushed his chair back with that slow old man calm that made it worse. He picked up his mug, set it back down. Looked Joy dead in the eyes. Keep selling the comfort. Just don't call it truth. He turned toward the exit, not a glance back at the lights, the cameras, the tight hush that broke like glass as the doors swung open behind him. A single clap cracked through the audience, half a cheer, but nobody else dared follow. And when the hush finally settled, the table sat frozen, Joy's fingers still pointed at the empty seat where the spin had just lost its last polite listener.